Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I hate the term Internet of Things. It's so uninspiring, right? Internet is about connectivity and things that we want, but things, things for a place like Copenhagen that has such a strong design tradition in making the furniture of our lives and making it beautiful, it seems like we can do better than Internet of Things. So I chose the word enchantment because that's the goal. That's what we want to do with all of these things that can be connected. So I teach at MIT at the Media Lab, and I want to show you a bunch of projects from the Media Lab. But first, before I do that, I want to sort of motivate what are 4 different ways it could go with technology. Sort of four futures that are all that paint a different picture between ourselves and our technology in relationship to us. Now, the first one is the one that we're all living with today, and this is what I call the terminal world. I'm really down on black glass slabs if you read the book. But this Microsoft Vision video from about 10 years ago sort of has come true. Like, we have the screening of the world. We have the screening of airplanes and our kitchens, and Las Vegas, sort of the Times Square, has come to most of our workplaces. And it really monopolizes our attention, and I think harms human relationships. And you probably agree. But is there a better way forward? That's really the question. The problem with all of the screening of the world is there's sort of a built-in business model, right? The advertising loves the pixels, so to the extent that we can spread more pixels in more places, even on heads-up display in our cars, there will be and there's a place for a built-in business model. I think there's a different business model for the Internet of Things, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But what's another idea? What's another way of changing our relationship to technology? Well, making technology in and on ourselves, I sort of think of as digital prosthetics. This is the fantasy of Iron Man. It's a suit that anyone can put on, and it gives you these superpowers. You don't have to be born with a special ability like Superman. Anybody can become Iron Man. And I think for people that, like Hugh Hare, who's my colleague at the Media Lab, if you're a double amputee and you have a deficit and you're given this new ability that's really a godsend. But for a friend who is at the Media Lab who's now leading the Google Glass project, it's really a nightmare to talk to this guy at MIT. It's really, like, you can't have a normal conversation with Thad because you walk up to him and he's got these things on his face and you're like, are you looking at me or are you looking at that? And it really harms human interaction, even if it augments him. So I'm really happy that Google Glass, sort of as a commercial venture, has failed. And I'm interested in wearables, but I think as they start to invade our face, it's really hard on human relationships. Now, a totally different way of positioning ourselves to technology is to outsource it. So this is the vision. If we were made in God's image, maybe we should make tech in our image. Right? Let's make just tech look like us and talk like us and gesture like us and be like us. And this is the fantasy we've had with sci-fi for a long time. I sort of think of this as the Downton Abbey fantasy, right? You've got your people. You've got somebody to dress you and somebody to cook for you and somebody to drive you, and all of these things, interestingly, have personalities. They all have a relationship to you. And the robotics community has really paid attention to not making these things mature, but making them have childlike features and characteristics. Because the more they have childlike proportions, the more that we love them. The more that they have big eyes like Japanese anime, or they're like kittens or kids. And so we can't resist. Our sort of nurturing instincts just kick in. So one of my colleagues from the Media Lab is doing this dieting robot called Autumn. It's designed to sit next to your fridge and make you feel like shit. But it works better than an iPad on the fridge would work because it's got these big, beautiful eyes, and you attach to it in a way. Cynthia Brinzil, who runs the robotics group at the Media Lab, just launched this project.
The world's first
called Jibo.
family robot.
How many people have seen
Say hi,
Jibo?
Jibo.
Hi, Jibo.
Jibo helps everyone out throughout their day. He's the world's best cameraman. By intelligently tracking the action around him, he can independently take video and photos, so that you can put down your camera and be a part of the scene.
Jibo, take the picture.
He's a hands-free helper. You can talk to him, and he'll talk to you back, so you don't have to skip a beat.
Excuse me, Anne?
Yes, Jibo.
Melissa just sent a reminder that she's picking you up in half an hour to go grocery shopping.
Thanks, Jibo.
He's an entertainer and educator. Through interactive applications, Jibo can teach.
Let me in, or else I'll... And I'll... And I'll blow your house in.
Hey, where'd you go? There you are.
I really hate Jibo.
He's the closest thing to a...
I'm just going to stop it right here. I really hate Jibo because he's trying to be too many things, right? He's overreaching. Like he's trying to be like Siri is for you. How many people still have a good relationship with Siri? You know, I sort of broke up with her, like on my phone because I would try to ask her things and she would fail me again and again. I think it makes great videos, great concept videos, but as you live with these things and they aren't real people, they tend to sort of become creepy and fall into this uncanny valley that was designed by Masahiro Emoto, which is as things, if you design things that are human-like or that look human-like, that are technology, it all seems to be getting better and better, right? Like your Roomba is so cute, it's almost like a maid. But then if you get too close to human-like, we reject these things because they threaten our own humanity. So all three of these approaches, I think, have fatal flaws. So what else could we do? Well, I believe that the coming of being able to atomize technology and just add a little bit of AI to a lot of things is the way forward for interfaces. I put this umbrella that I designed an umbrella that on the cover of the book, and it was inspired by Frodo's sword. How many people remember Frodo? Right, so his sword had like a magical capability. You're like my people, because everyone knows Frodo. So his sword, Sting, knows when orcs are nearby, right? And just glows like it's handy. It's also a sword. But it doesn't need like a UI, it doesn't need anything else. It just does the right thing. So the umbrella also glows when rain is nearby in the same way and has no other interface. So I think the place to go as we're designing these things is the stories that we all grew up with. You know, the stories that were written by Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm about flying carpets and magic purses and gourds that refill themselves. And like all of these stories run in our cultural bloodstream. We love these things, and we sort of already know what we should be designing to satisfy these drives, these psychological drives that are motivated through these stories. So we all know the story about the mirror that reveals who's the fairest of them all. Well, maybe we could make a mirror. There's one such company that's making a mirror called the memory mirror. That's right, and they're doing it for Neiman Marcus, and it shows you the fairest outfit of them all for you. And you can also turn around and see your ass, which is useful for a mirror. Or this pen, like a sort of a pen that remembers forever. So this is a pen by Enoto. I don't know, how many people have tried the Enoto pen or LiveScribe? There's a pen with a camera in the end, and it notices what you write, and it records everything because it has a microphone in it. So it's a pen with a cloud. So one of the topics for today is what will be disrupted? Well, if you're a pen company and now you can embed a little connectivity and a little sensor in a pen, now it's a service, right? Now you need a cloud, you need memory, you need search, you need all these other services. So I think there's an interesting opportunity as these things become connected to sort of pair product companies and service companies. Like maybe Evernote should come out with a pen, or maybe Montblanc should do a deal with Amazon Cloud, right? It sort of will disrupt both of these companies. But these are ordinary things that can become enchanted. Or these trash cans around Cambridge. These look like normal trash cans, but they have a solar panel on top, so they compress the trash, and then they only call the truck when they're full. So you don't have like stinky, expensive union. No, the union people aren't stinky, but the trucks are stinky, and so they only drive around if they're, when the trash cans are full. So this sort of seaming of the world is ripe for new partnerships, new introductions to be made, because all of these objects are these avatars for services. They're sort of services in disguise. I want to show you a video that the New York Times did of my house, and featuring my 6-year-old kid, just to sort of show you how I've been trying to take products that we've developed in the lab and sort of put them into a context and have my wife reject them over time. Enchanted objects are ordinary things that have the same functionality that they had before, except now they can talk. They're connected. These are ordinary things that have extraordinary capabilities.
When we're creating technology for the home, really we want to make something that's seamless and transparent, and that as opposed to having things sort of call out and draw your attention to it, make it a more ambient experience.
We'll just continue to behave with those everyday objects as we do in the world, and we can remain focused on connectivity between two people.
What we're seeing now is this proliferation of different devices that are, moving out from the cell phone and onto our bodies and into the world.
So in the middle of our living room is a coffee table that has Google Earth embedded in the coffee table. And I just found that having access to this amazing zoomable map completely changes how often we talk about travel and how often we talk about the world and how often we look up places that are mentioned. And it's nice to have this beautiful large reference object sitting in the middle of our living space. Our devices can be a lot simpler, and the interaction to them can be a lot simpler. The internet-connected umbrella can just be an umbrella that only shows whether it's going to rain. You don't need to tap on an icon or do anything that seems sort of artificial.
We come from a time in which we need to adapt to our homes and not the other way around. So what if our home could be a platform that we personalize and we customize? The key is, how do we create this ecosystem, these technologies that allow us to move from one experience to the other in the most seamless, most magical way.
Some people might think that a connected home is overwhelming, that there'll be so much information in a connected home that it's just a cacophonous environment and you wouldn't want to live there. But I think about how we decorate our homes today. We put photographs everywhere, we put paintings up, we put Post-it notes up. There's a lot of decoration and adornment in the home. And I think if enchanted objects can be designed in the right way, we're going to want hundreds of them around us.
I think what we're going to see is a new renaissance where designers as well as computer scientists are going to really make a really big impact in the type of technology that we see in the home.
The history of computers has mostly been about efficiency. I think one of the things that's changing is that enchanted objects can be about adding motion and add magic to the fabric of our everyday lives and experiences. Isn't he cute? How many people are convinced that enchanted things are the way forward for human interface? Are you with me? Good. Now the question is, what should we enchant? We have all of these objects around us, the size of microcontrollers. I was just at South by Southwest this weekend speaking to this company called Silicon Labs, who's made it a bet. It's a public company. They've bet their entire company on Internet of Things. And I saw rice grain-sized microcontrollers that last for 5 years on tiny watch batteries, just for solving all of your problems. If you're a designer and you say, well, I want to make a ring, they're technically solving the problem of embedding sensors and connectivity and computation in things that are ring-sized and earring-sized and brooch-sized, certainly. So there are lots of smart people that are working on the enabling technology for you to do whatever you dream. I made a poster that I'm happy to send people that tries to organize all of these connected things based on our aspirations, based on things that enchant us. And most of these aspirations are revealed through fairy tales. So things like omniscience, to be all-knowing, telepathy, to communicate with the mind of another person, safekeeping, immortality, that's a big one, teleportation, the sort of moving seamlessly around the world, and finally personal expression, playing, making, generating. So those are the aspirations. So what are the objects that tend to satisfy these, both from fiction and also that are now in the world? Inspired by a frosted glass ball from, what is this? Wizard of Oz, right? That told you sort of the future, or where, at least where the flying monkeys were. I made this frosted glass ball that glows any color based on data. So it takes any one-dimensional data, like the temperature outside, and then maps it to color. Or if you have a kid who's asthmatic, the pollen count, or the too much wind, or not enough wind for sailing, or whether the fish are biting right now, or how is your garden growing, and maps all of that to this object. Now, we put this in people's homes, and we thought it would just be sort of a nice way to glance at information, right? But it turned out that people paid a lot of attention to this. It was sort of unavoidable. The data was unavoidable in the same way that you pass a window and you sort of automatically, through the corner of your eye, know if it's raining outside. So it's really powerful, I think, to have data that's unavoidable. I think that's the key to behavior change. The sensing should be automatic, and the data should be displayed in a way where you can't avoid seeing it. The company today is just doing this product called the Energy Jewel, which is just trying to help people understand their home energy consumption. And it's being given away by energy companies to try to make people more aware of the load on the grid, which is a great business model. Having another company give away your product to many people. So the sort of lesson here with, I think, with these omniscient sort of dashboard type devices is that having pervasive display is really persuasive. So it's great for behavior change. We worked with a bank in North Carolina who so believed in this idea of feedback loops and behavioral feedback loops. He said, customer satisfaction is the measure of success in our company, and I want it as big as possible. Can you build me an obelisk outside of my bank that has this data, real-time measure of customer satisfaction on the top of the obelisk? Because I'm going to tell all my employees and all of my customers that it's that we're paying attention and we're trying to be as good as possible. So, displaying the health of something can happen both on a personal basis, on a family basis, and also on a company basis. The next example I want to share is one that doesn't involve any pixels at all, which is sort of desire to know to know the mind of someone else. A lot of my students make internet-connected pillows and rings and things like that. I made a doorbell that was inspired by the Weasley clock. How many people remember Weasley, the Weasley family? So Weasleys have a big family. Mrs. Weasley sort of wants to keep track. So they have a grandfather clock in their kitchen where each hand is the status of a kid or a family member. So you can see that on the outside, like who's lost, who's playing Quidditch, who's in mortal peril, which is handy, I guess, if you're the mom. And as a kid, I would listen to Prokofiev, where every character in the story has a ringtone. Remember this? So in my family, there's a doorbell where you can hear every kid as they're homebound, or they can hear me as I'm homebound. So it's sort of general. It's a doorbell. Everyone's used to what doorbells do. You ring them and they make a noise. But this one rings when you break these sort of geofences on your way home, which can be convenient for multiple reasons. So the sort of aspiration to stay safe, we worked with Bank of America. Bank of America said people with credit cards don't have any sense of how they're doing against a monthly budget, right? Like it's this inert object. It gives you lots of spending power, but people regularly blow through their monthly budget. What could we do to help? So we took an everyday object, which is a wallet, and an everyday gesture, which is opening the wallet, and we put a variable resistance hinge in the wallet. So as you blow through your budget, it becomes harder and harder to open the wallet, which I love because it's sort of a haptic feedback device. And so these things don't have to look like something. They can also sound like something and feel like something in your life as well. I'm sure, how many people have tried some sort of self-tracking device, some sort of like wearable bracelet or whatever with an accelerometer? I think that those are spreading and becoming very affordable. And this is a set of 3 bottles that each contain one instrument of a jazz trio. This is also an example from the Media Lab. The drums. Isn't that nice? It's sort of like a genie in a bottle type idea. But why not? You can take this everyday gesture of, opening a vessel and map that to some type of information or display. So in the U.S., medications are distributed in these amber vials that are child-proof and UV-proof. And so rather than trying to make a new vessel, we made smart pill bottle caps in my last company. And we worked with Mass General Hospital, and we just measured the data, like how often are people taking their meds. In this population, these are days and those are people, and pink means they didn't open the cap that day, which means they probably didn't take their med if they didn't open the cap. But then we turned on a set of services that were all sparked by this knowledge of whether somebody's opened their pill bottle cap, and we got this data. So a huge difference based on being able to remind someone, being able to inform a loved one, being able to auto-refill from the pharmacy, and also give data back to the doc if it's a transplant patient or an HIV patient. So it was a big, big difference in terms of the sort of dumb tech versus the smart tech. And it also suggests a new business model because Novartis makes 30% more rev. That's good, right? And the insurance companies save $300 billion in the US due to hospitalizations due to non-adherence, right? So somebody's going into the hospital because they didn't take a med. Like, it's a huge, huge issue. And so it's entirely subsidized twice over. Oh, and it's also nice because people get better. So that, it's good for people.
This
and AT&T loves it because it
possibilities.
sells more and more connections. I noticed somebody from Swisscom is here.
In here,
You want a subsidized way of getting more connectivity into people's lives.
In here, medicine talks to you.
And there are a lot of dogs, so dogs are another
In
big
here,
opportunity.
pets never get lost. It's the AT&T network, and what's
Remembering to take your pills can be difficult. I have a little mnemonic device I use to remind myself. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday are the days I take my pills. Or it might be nights, I don't remember. Well, the Vitality Corporation has a solution called Glow Caps. Jim?
Glow caps are internet-connected pill caps that go on regular pill bottles. Now, each day when it's time for Grandpa to take his heart pills, the glow cap pulses with this light. If he doesn't see this light for some reason, the glow cap plays a ringtone, kind of like a cell phone. Now, here's where it really gets cool. If Grandpa misses a pill, the glow cap will call his home phone as a reminder.
This is perfect. Because while old people can be forgetful, they are great when it comes to setting up the internet, recognizing cell phone ringtones, and accessing voicemail messages.
So, the Internet of Things for health is pretty ugly these days, but I'm excited. I'm wearing one of these watches that Withings gave me. It shows what the time is, which is nice, but it also has this secondary dial that shows me my activity against a goal. But no one ever stops me and says, hey, what's that thing on your wrist? Because it's really, they've working with a Swiss watch company, and they've really camouflaged the data. And I really hope that more partnerships are struck between like Tory Burch and Fitbit, or Ringley as a sort of beautifully designed object, or Swarovski, I can't say that word, and Misfit. This is what's interesting about this partnership is Misfit is embedded a little bit of photovoltaic material, so the crystal actually aggregates the light and recharges the device. Super smart, because the battery issues for these things are a big change. And I put this one in because this is called the June bracelet, and it's I can't believe they haven't done a deal with Estee Lauder or L'Oreal yet, because this measures your exposure to bright light, and then encourages more consumption of lotions and potions in order to save your skin from the bright light. So I think it's interesting that even a lotions and potions company could be in the wearables space to try to help people take care of themselves. And I think if you're designing Internet of Things, go to the everyday objects like forks and things in the world. One of my students did this fork that his insight was that people who are obese often eat very quickly. And this puts a little accelerometer and a battery and a little thing that perturbs the fork if you eat too quickly. So it introduces a little bit of palsy, so it's sort of hard to hit your mouth. which is a terrible idea. Like, I can't believe, like, somebody's commercialized this and don't get it. Like, it's just, this is just paternalistic technology at its worst. But I am most excited about the category of personal expression. I think robots will make us lazy in lots of ways and take care of our lives in lots of ways, but hopefully it gives us more time to be expressive. This is a paintbrush that embeds a camera at the end. Right? So fun. Or how many people have a tennis racket or golf club that embeds some sort of accelerometer? Is it making you a better tennis player yet? No? Oh, okay. But I'm intrigued because I think there's hope for all of us who, aren't the pianists that we wanted to be or the cellists. Guitar Hero makes, learning guitar sort of fun. It inverts the learning curve in some fun ways. Lego Mindstorm sort of makes programming into something that can be fun. I wanted to talk to you, especially this audience today, about photography, because I have another startup that is out of the Media Lab that is just looking at the photos that people share online. It's this crazy trend, right? If you look at the number of photos shared, it's 1.8 billion a day right now. And that's just with camera phones. There's a Swedish company called Narrative that makes a little clip that's this size this year, and it's going to be a quarter of the size next year, that it's probably going to be built into some buttons that takes a photo every 30 seconds throughout your day, whether your friends know it or not. And what's interesting about this huge proliferation of cameras and the falling costs of cameras, putting them in pens and paintbrushes and buttons, is that we'll have more data about our lives. Certainly from a marketing perspective, that you can ask questions about how people shop and how people live and how people consume. I mean, this is sort of P&G's dream. This is the data that I captured from the Narrative clip for 2 days. That's a magician in Copenhagen that I teach a workshop with at the Copenhagen Interaction Design Institute. We do a 2-week workshop on enchanted objects there. It's super fun. And the other ones around MIT. But what do you notice from these little time lapse of the day? You notice that a really long lunch outside in Copenhagen. You notice how much time you're spending with students versus at screens. You notice how often you're snacking. You notice how often you're spending time with kids versus adults. You notice the products that you encounter. So what my new company called Ditto Labs is doing, and if anybody wants to try it, I'll give you free trials, is we've trained a computer vision system on recognizing brands and objects and scenes. So we started with brands, and we said, how do we train a system to automatically look at hundreds of millions of photos a day and find the use of products? So find the Vera Bradley purse, or the person that's eating, or bad, fried food, or Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Train on all of these brands that are designed to be recognizable in the world, and then show me the photos. Like, what are people mixing Red Bull with, and what are people putting Frenchie's mustard on, and what are people eating Chobani yogurts while they drive? It's really bad, but it reveals a lot about behavior, and so it's a sort of, I think, the next generation of market research is looking at these photos and seeing how people are like really living and using products, not in a focus group, but in the real world. It's really authentic. But I also think it signals the future of advertising, because you can now prospect someone. You can say, he was drinking like Carlsberg, and like we're gonna Miller the shit out of him. Like we're gonna promote other products to people based on experiences, what they're doing, and you can do that now with Twitter. But I also think it signals the future of shopping, because I think we are inspired by the photos that our friends take, and that's the reinvention of the catalog, I think. The Facebook feed, when your friends are like on a beachy vacation or have a new bag or eating at a nice restaurant, like you want to just say, ditto that, do that. Like, isn't that the way we will shop? So I'm really intrigued by this use of photography. And I want to talk more about it, but I'm going to go on with my talk. If people want to talk about it afterwards, there's new technology that really benefits from the cloud and from fast computing called convolutional neural networks. And it's also called deep learning, but it's a way to train the system to recognize not only brands and products, but also the context of use. So we have there's a scene net and an object net, and so you can say that was taken inside of a restaurant, and that was taken inside of a baseball game, and that was taken inside of a plane, right? So you can understand not just the products and people, but also the context. So it's really intriguing what you can now mine in photos. So if you're going to take an ordinary thing and make it enchanted, like we took this trash can, which is a VIP trash can made here in Denmark. Very nice. I talked to the founder of the company. I think there's this ladder that you can climb. And the first step of the ladder, of course, is sort of connecting it to the cloud. The next step is connecting it to a service that already knows something about you. So we made this connected trash can that has a little camera on its lid, and it looks at what you just threw out. And we connected it to your Amazon account. You probably have some other food delivery service here, not Amazon Fresh. So the idea was it would restock your house. Like you throw out a can of soup, maybe you want another can of soup or a toothbrush or whatever. The next step could be, maybe if it's appropriate, is to connect it to a social network. The next step might be to gamify it and give you goals, if it's a weight scale or something. And the next step, I think, in order to make these things fun, is to add a little story inside. So our story that happened inside this trash can was a guy who lives in the trash can who gives you shit about what you throw out. So, we hooked this up and it worked, and it was ordering stuff from Amazon, and it was a little bit boring. So we decided, well, there's a really nice opportunity to switch you at that moment of throwing something out to something that's more locally sourced, to something that's better for you, like not the third box of cookies, or something that saves you a little bit of money. And if you don't like its advice, you just kick the can, and then, it does the thing that you originally did, which is to restock what you just threw out. How many people would want an internet-connected trash can? Anyway? Yeah? If anybody wants to build it, I think the business model for this is also built in, because it accounts for a huge stream of money in most people's lives, sort of the restocking of food. How many people have tried if this, then that? Yes? Just a couple? I would say if you do anything as a result of this talk, try that app, if this, then that, because it really helps you understand in your own life how these internet-connected things could combine into systems, which is the fourth part of the book. So I have a Jawbone Up that makes my home lights sort of groovy Virgin Airlines purple if I've walked enough steps, so my kids give me a high five. Or my car tells my house that I've left, and it turns the heat down. So all of these things, you can sort of make these little one-sentence programs, these one-sentence rules that will say, like, if somebody's tweeted about my company, then, follow them back or something. But you can also control the things that are connected in your life and sort of hack that and play with that, which is, I think, a nice way of sort of understanding these things. Here are some if this then that hooks that were done in this workshop that I teach at the Copenhagen Interaction Design Institute. And the hooks know what's on the hook. It's a beautiful day out, so you should be running. Or just don't forget your umbrella. This is intriguing to me because it's sort of taking the intelligence out of the things and putting it into the vessel or the architecture of the thing that you store the things on, which is sort of another level of abstraction. So I want to show you two more things, but one of them is I've been working with Salesforce on furniture for the workplace. And one of the things that I noticed when I read this book called Quiet is that it makes this point that introverts have just as many good ideas as extroverts. And the problem is mostly in conversation, introverts are squelched by the rest of us, by the extroverts. So this was an idea of how could you make a centerpiece for a table or a table that sort of gets more beautiful the more equal balanced contribution there is. And it's probably not for every type of conversation. It's probably appropriate to have certain people dominating certain conversations. But it's just designed to be a feedback device. It doesn't know who's there. It doesn't store any of the data. but it just tries to give you feedback on conversational balance. So it's called the balance table. If you want to try one, I'd love to send you one. They're sort of big right now, but there's this 6-sided table, and it just hides this constellation of LEDs, and the LEDs in front of the person that's talking ever so slowly over the course of minutes fade up. So over the course of 10 minutes or so, you can see that like she's totally been dominating this conversation, and he should get a word in edgewise. And ideally, like this is what good facilitators do. Like if you've been to facilitator training, you try to do the subtlest thing possible to sort of, like coax out someone who hasn't said anything, and they probably have a good idea, and then you sort of stand behind the person who's been talking too much and put your hand on their shoulder if they've sort of said enough. But it's trying to have a table that tries to achieve the same thing by just embedding a little bit of technology in an everyday object that you just don't notice if you want to ignore it. So that's what it looks like today. The last thing I wanted to show you is these are benches. This was also part of the IKEA prototyping, where the students were assigned to go to IKEA and hack some ordinary IKEA thing and make it a little bit more enchanted. And these students decided they would do a city bench that would understand your dating profile and that would associate you more closely with the people that you were more likely to be a fit with. It's that easy. The other idea was, could all surfaces be displays, and could the displays know who's looking? So it gives you the right information at the right moment. In this case, to help the conversation. You get the idea. So I hope that you believe, as I do, that this atomization of intelligence that sort of makes its way into everything around us will make our interface to technology more tangible, like the wallets, more haptic, more incidental, like the table display, more embedded in everything, like pill bottle caps, more expressive, like the camera or the paintbrush or your tennis racket, and ultimately more humanistic. I hope you agree. Just the last thing I want to say is, I think a lot of these Internet of Connected Things today are sort of seen as gadgety, but I really do think they have the potential to change housing, like that furniture dispenser that you saw, right? That makes it possible to live in a smaller space. It will change how we get information, how we connect to others, how we stay safe, how we enjoy a long life, how we move around the world, and how we play, learn, and create. So thank you very much for your attention. Thanks. Thank you.